Hi folks, Greg the RV Carnivore, and I am currently in Ellijay, Georgia at Talona Ridge RV Resort. This is probably one of the nicest resorts I've ever been to. I'm here for an event called Cops and Campers put on by Eric Reynolds, a former Boynton Beach retired police officer. And while here, there have been some very interesting characters that I've gotten to meet. And one in particular, we had a conversation earlier, and that conversation was about her involvement in a television show that you've probably heard of. It's called Naked and Afraid. In 2017, again in 2019, and then again in 2023, my guest with us right now, Gwen Grimes, is from Alaska. She is a survival expert. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
And Gwen told me about her adventures being naked and afraid. And without further ado, we're just going to cut right into this. Hi, Gwen. Thanks for joining.
Hi.
This is such a cool thing. This is, y'all are in for a little bit of a treat, because if you think about all the events that are going on right now around America and now around the world, there's a big push for doing insect eating for protein. There's a huge push for plant protein, and there is a huge push to stop animal proteins, and that's a dangerous thing, as so many of you know. And being a carnivore, sometimes herbivore, sometimes omnivore, mostly ketovore, I still try to stay within the animal fats and proteins realm. And there was an idea that I had that I was going to try to do 30 days of a protein powder. In our discussion today, I learned that Gwen had to go how many days for the first round?
21 days for the first time.
21 days.
I was in Mexico.
In Mexico.
Yep.
And what food and supplies did they give you on the production?
So they didn't give us any food, didn't give us any water. You strip naked. They give you a knife and a fire starter.
A knife, a fire starter, you're naked. And what are you supposed to be afraid of? Your ability?
I don't know, I haven't figured that out yet. I was never afraid.
Let me tell you, she's not somebody who's afraid. This is so cool. What a perfect candidate to do this. Okay, so the first time around, 21 days, and if you were going to eat it, you had to come up with it. Is that correct?
You had to trap it, fish it, catch it, hunt it, whatever, yeah.
You didn't have a fishing rod, did you?
Nope, you had to make your own.
Okay.
Or build a fish trap or whatever, yeah.
So we're talking about survival at its bare minimum. You're literally not wearing any clothes.
Correct, you've lost your shelter immediately.
So all that shelter is gone.
Shelter's gone.
All right. So now it's down to, at what point in the first 21-day adventure, because you did 3 of these, in this first adventure in 2017, how long into the event were you? Let's call it a 21-day event. How long into it before you realized, I got to go out and catch some food?
I think we were 5 days in when both of us were like, you know what, we probably need to eat something.
So you're with another person?
Yes.
Did you know who this person was going into it?
Not going into it, no.
Okay, so it was not like Amazing Race.
Random stranger.
Random stranger.
Yes.
Okay, so they throw you into the Mexican wilderness to fend for yourself.
Yes.
Going into this, what was your dietary intake?
So going into it, I didn't really know what exactly I was getting into because I didn't know that much about the show.
Okay.
I hadn't really seen that much of it, so I wasn't quite sure what was going to be happening. The day we got there, I got there. He was there a couple days before me. My plane got all jacked up, so I ended up getting there the day before insertion. So I had very little time to feed myself or acclimate or anything. It was kind of hit the ground running, sleep, get up, go on insertion the next day. So I didn't really eat much of anything because I had just gotten in country.
What would be a normal food for you? Like before that, hamburgers or steaks?
No.
Salads?
Like I told you, we live off grid up in Alaska, and so most of the food that I had eaten for many years had been just living off the land. We garden, grow our own food, we forage, we hunt, fish.
And that's something that I didn't mention before, and I should, is that Gwen lives in Alaska, and she lives off grid. And former police officer, which is how she's part of this as well. So as a former police officer, were you surrounded by other officers all the time, or were you basically up in the bush by yourself?
So the first half of my career, I was up in the bush by myself. Out in the villages, I was it, no backup.
So you were
flying
naked
only.
without police officers around you. And you could be afraid if there was a giant bear or a polar bear near you, right?
Yeah, I had a gun.
So you were all had a gun.
I had a gun.
But you were already kind of naked and afraid in one sense. doing that. You had to learn how to survive.
You learned how to adapt to the environment that you were in. That's the key to survival, is adapting to the environment that you're in, wherever you're at.
Okay. So in the environment of Alaska, which is pretty harsh for most people's standards. I mean, here I live in a 43-foot condo at a glamping campground. So when I'm in a place like that, it's the woods that are behind me. It's these mountains that are behind me. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot colder than it is here.
Right.
Okay. So when you're foraging for food, what kind of things would you look for? Is it moose or elk, deer?
So we would harvest moose, caribou, grizzly bear, black bear.
Okay.
Our predominant big game meat animals.
Big game meat?
Yes.
Which also put up a big fight too, right? If you weren't skilled.
I guess if you're not skilled, they would.
Some days you're the bear, and some days you eat the bear, and some days the bear eats you.
You are always at the top of the food chain.
Okay. So now let's get to your insertion. You're in Mexico, and you already understand some basics of life. You didn't understand the show. You kind of knew the premise, but you were already prepared for sort of what they put you into, right?
I knew my survival skills were solid, but I'd never actually been out of country yet at that point in my life. So Mexico was a whole new animal for me, and the heat. It was snowing the day that I left to go down to Mexico.
Okay.
And when I got there, I got off the plane, and the humidity was probably 100% humidity, and it was like 120 degrees outside. And I was like, I'm in trouble. I stepped off that plane, and I was like, holy shit,
out of your
I am
element.
in trouble. I'm out of my element big time.
Okay.
And then not knowing what I didn't have a tan. I came out of Alaska. There's no sun up there in the wintertime.
And there's no black grizzlies in Mexico.
No,
there's no caribou.
not.
There's no elk. There's no deer. There's
none of that. No.
So this is, I guess, where it gets kind of fun, because you have to realize that you need to survive. Mm-hmm. There's camera people that you're not even allowed to interact with. You have to pretend like they're not even there.
Correct.
And they don't talk to you, correct?
Correct.
All right, so with all the production crew that's there, which is bare minimum, you and your partner in this adventure,
Yep.
John, the two of you have to figure out how you're going to eat. And is it you pick two berries because one's for you and one's for him, or is it every man for themselves?
So we interacted really well as a team.
Okay.
John, I had more body fat than he did.
Mm-hmm.
John was extremely fit, extreme athlete, and I knew that he was going to be burning more calories than I would, just because of his muscle mass that he had.
Okay.
And I know I can live off my fat body storage for a while longer than him.
Okay.
So I'd always give him the bigger portion of whatever we got, because I knew that he needed it more, and it's team effort. We got to be out there, and we got to be able to take care of each other. So going in about day 5, we were both like, getting a little bit hungry here, probably should find something to eat.
Was this your first time to eat? Was about day 5?
About day 5, yep.
Out of 21 days?
Out of 21 days.
So you're a quarter of the way in.
Right. And so both of us were feeling hungry. There was crabs on the beach, and so we were able to start figuring out how to catch crabs. Took us a while to figure that out, but we finally figured it out. We ate tarantulas. We ate termites. Termites are pretty tasty. They taste like little lemon zings when you eat them.
Really?
Yeah, they're good.
Wow.
So we'd dig up logs and we'd pull termites out. We tried ants. We ate lizards. And they wanted us to go hunt poisonous snakes, and we had enough crabs. We named our little shelter G&J's Crab Shack. Because we were doing pretty good with that, and we were able to harvest some prickly pear fruits that are on the top. Harvested those, and prickly pear pads of that. Had some berries there. Neither of us were familiar with them, so we had to do the taste tests and the skin tests and all that to make sure that they were edible and they weren't going to kill us. So we took a few days to figure those out. Once we figured out those were edible, we were able to eat those. We found some little round fruits. I don't know what they were, but they were fruits that tasted really good, so we picked those up and eat those. So we had a very small portion of fruit. Mostly crab meat was predominant of our diet, and that's what we did. All the 21 days, firewood, food, keep the fire going.
I'll be darned. So I know a lot of people are probably thinking, watching this, they're thinking, well, at least she already knows what she can eat. But when you're thrown into an environment that you're not even from, that's thousands of miles away, in a different climate zone, the food that you were used to seeing growing on a tree that you might be able to eat in Alaska,
not in Mexico. Does not exist in Mexico, and that was the hardest part, was figuring out what you can eat. If you're from that area, no problem. You probably grew up, you knew what was available. Going down there as totally new to Mexico, not a clue. I didn't know. I know you can eat crabs.
So for 21 days, and you survived because you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Then a couple of years later, you get the phone call from the producers, hey, we want you back because you were a good character to have.
Yep, now we want you to do 40 days. Let's challenge you even further. Let's see if you can do 40 days.
Let's double it.
Yeah, let's double down here, see what you got.
Okay, so new partner in crime for this?
Yes, so
Okay.
the 40 days, there's 12 people that go out for that, but you're not all there together at the same time.
But the same goal.
Same goal is for all 40
days.
all of you to survive 40 days.
Okay.
Eventually you'll meet up and you'll become a tribe. What's left of you.
And did that happen in Mexico?
Mexico is just John and I, just the
Okay.
two of us.
So then you went to South
Then we
Africa.
went to South Africa.
Okay.
We did 40 days up on the Botswana border
Okay.
and survived out there for 40 days, and that was a whole different cat.
What were some of the things that you found yourself eating?
So, when we first got there, we got there in the dry season. And so the dry season means nothing is growing. And it is hot, hot, hot. It is 130 degrees, I think was the hottest that we experienced.
130?
Yep, 130 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
And the wind was blowing, kind of like it is today, but it was hot wind. It was like standing in front of the gates of hell.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
it was hot. It like put you on the ground hot. You couldn't walk on the sand. It was so hot, it would give you second-degree burns on your feet.
And you're not putting flip-flops on because you're
No.
naked.
We stopped and
You're
actually pulled bark off a baobab tree and made shoes before we walked in, because we knew that if we don't have our feet, we're done. You're done. Like,
Wow.
you're not going anywhere. So we made Wes and I we made shoes. We hiked into our site and got our boma set up to protect us from the
Now I have
Big
to
Five.
explain to people who are watching this and don't know, because I didn't know. A boma is a
acacia
thorn barrier.
ring of protection around your camp.
So it's a giant ring of thorns to keep
Yes.
the hyenas, and a giraffe could stick its head in.
Which it did. Yes.
Which that's crazy to me. I think they're the coolest looking animals at the zoo, and here they are eating out of your
Yep, they were eating our brush.
So animals couldn't get into you to hurt you as long as you were protected by that.
Yes.
Okay. So I wanted to make sure that you guys understood that that's what she's living in. So that's
Yeah.
daytime.
That's daytime, and at
Or
night,
I mean nighttime. That's nighttime what you're staying in.
day and night.
Oh, day and
That's
night.
home. That is home base. Like, that's your camp. You have your fire in there. You have where you sleep in there. All of your tools are in there. Because we had baboons that would steal your stuff. They'd come in and they'd like take any tools you had and they'd take off and you'd never see it again. So you had to keep all of your tools inside your boma where the animals couldn't get in to do anything to
Now,
it.
how big was this boma?
It was probably 10 feet across.
Okay. So not very big.
No, big
Did you get
enough.
claustrophobic at all being in that?
Not really. No.
Okay. All right. Now, of course, you have to venture out of it if you wanted
Did.
to use the restroom, things like that, because you don't do that in your bed.
Correct.
All right.
So we had a place up behind our place that was a bathroom area
Okay.
for us. We ended up, you'd go out basically when the sun came up. You could go out and you could start getting firewood, foraging, hunting, doing all of that.
Okay.
Getting your water. Water was a huge thing out there.
Okay.
So we had one of the perks of our place that we had up the hill from where our boma was at. There was a little river, but it was a dry bed, and it ran down, and down at the bottom there was this big water hole where all the animals that were 20 yards from our boma. We could watch them. They'd come down and they'd eat and drink at this water hole, and then they'd go. Well, it was like muck, nasty, just a muck pit, because all the animals would, the elephants would come down and they'd roll around in it, and it was goo. It was nasty, nasty. Most survivalists, when they're put out on that show, will actually drink water from that source. They'll put it in their pots, and they'll boil it, and then they'll drink it. It still tastes like poo water. It just does. I mean, no
other word for it.
No other word for it. It's disgusting. So I'm looking up, and I was like, that water's got to be coming from somewhere. It's dry season. There's water running into it. It never goes away. You can see it running down. There's a creek that keeps going down the hill from this water source. There's got to be something feeding it. So we just explored up, found a patch where some grass was growing up, coming down, and we were like, this got to be the spot. A little bit damp, right? So we started digging. As we're digging, the water's starting to come in. So it's a natural seep hole, right? So none of the animals had gotten up into this area because it was buried. So we dug it out. We dug down about 2 feet down, and then it started filling up with clear water in the bottom. And we just let it sit. All the sediment just started to settle, and we were pulling cold, cool water out of there to drink while we were in the bush of Africa.
What was that feeling like?
It was phenomenal. Like that's everything. Water's life.
Water's life.
Water is life. And I was like, we're not leaving this site. This is it. We're going to stay here for 40 days because I'm not drinking poo water when we keep going to go on extraction.
Using your head.
Not doing it.
So I'm curious, did you fast at all? Did you have any kind of fasting regimen before you got onto these shows, long before 2017?
No.
So no purposeful, no intentional fasting?
Never. Had never done that
A big
before.
part of the carnivore life, or a big part of not just carnivore life, but it goes into keto as well. A big part of that is fasting. So we do intermittent fasting. You might eat for an 8-hour window, and 16 hours you don't. Some people fast for 24, so it's called OMAD, 1 meal a day. Did you guys find yourselves eating once a day? Like that was, you collected your food, you ate it, and then that was it? Or did you eat whenever you could?
You had to eat when you could, because if you left it out, it would go bad because it was so hot.
Okay.
So you had to cook it. So we ended up, Impala that Wes shot, he shot a little diker first, which are little deer. They look like
goats.
Little smaller than that.
Wow.
They're small. They're really tiny. They're only about that tall. And so he shot one of those. So we ate that, and
So they had you guys armed with guns at this point?
no guns.
Wait, shot them with what?
Bows.
Homemade?
No. So the production for the 40-day gave each group a bow.
Okay.
Just a regular recurve bow. Problem was with these bows, they were only a 40-pound pull.
Okay.
Right? With my arm being jacked up, I can't pull back that 40 pounds because I'm left-handed. So
She was injured in the line of duty, by the way.
So pulling back a bow, that was out of the question. So I ended up actually making a crossbow out there with one of those bows, which was pretty cool. That was cool. So that gave it more firepower to knock animals down.
Okay.
Anyway, so Wes is a phenomenal bow hunter. That's what he does down here. He lives down this way. And he was able to shoot a diker. So we ate that as a record diker, like 10-inch horns on it. Cool.
Wow.
So we ate him, and then about 2 weeks later, roughly 12 days maybe, he shot an Impala.
Okay.
And then that Impala was able to feed a bunch of us. By then, some other people had come into our camp, and so we had more people there. We actually built a smoker.
Okay.
We smoked all the meat and jerked it, what we couldn't eat.
You built a smoker in the wild
Yeah.
in South Africa.
Yeah. And made jerky.
Beat that, all of you backyard smokers.
Impala jerky.
Oh my gosh.
It was really good.
Wow. Okay, props. Mad props. That's the coolest. I did not know this going into this interview. I did not know they made their own smoker.
Yep, made Impala jerky.
That's impressive.
That sustained us for the rest of the time that we were out there. We were able to dole it out. We did get some mold on a couple pieces that didn't dry right, so we had to toss those, which was unfortunate. But we were able to predominantly be pretty successful with that bushcraft.
And you said there were a dozen people in that 40-day adventure?
Total that were spread out all over.
Mm-hmm.
Only 6 of us ended up being able to walk out.
So 12 went in, 6 came out.
Yeah.
6 came out early, tapped out, they're done.
Yeah.
Some went out medically tapped out, and some went out. I just can't take it.
Not doing this. Can't
Had they
do it.
ever done that before?
Anybody?
Had they done the 21-day challenge before that?
So ours was a unique season where we had most of the people out there had done 21 days, but then they threw ringers in for each of the groups where they put a person that had not done, that had tapped or been med tapped on a 21, and they put them in as a third person coming into the 2-party groups that we had coming around.
That's interesting.
None of them made it.
None of them made it. Wow.
So we were, it was quite the experience.
So one of the things that caught my attention when we were talking about this is that I'm just going to say it was the ultimate carnivore, because you ate. Tell me some of the variations of meats that you ate.
So Africa specifically, we were 100% carnivore. We didn't have any greens. There was nothing.
100% carnivore.
100% carnivore. We had no greens. There was no greens available. It was the dry season. There wasn't anything growing.
No processed foods at all, because they didn't supply you with anything.
They don't supply you with any food or water while you're out there. So
I heard you say turtle?
We killed turtles. We ate turtles, had turtle eggs, turtles. Those were interesting. They're hard to clean.
Yeah.
Especially with limited tools.
Yeah.
So we ate turtle. We had the funniest one. So Wes and I, we'd been out. We actually went 10 days without food. Wes and I, trying to find food when we first got out there, and both of us were
of the 40 day.
Of the 40 day.
Okay.
First 10 days before he got that diaper. He'd gotten a squirrel.
Okay.
So we had the squirrel. I'd found some fish. We pulled these fish out of the bottom of one of the little pools, and they were like little minnows like this. And we just ate them whole. We didn't even cook them. We just
like sardines.
Basically, but as soon as we threw them in our mouth, it was like licking the bottom of a dirty aquarium.
Oh my
so
gosh.
Gross.
Oh,
so I'm like, we're not doing that food source anymore. We're done with that. That's enough. But we ate squirrels, lizards, tons of lizards. The funny thing with that, so we'd catch these little lizards, and they're only like this big, so there's not a lot of meat on them, right? And we'd put them over the fire, and we'd just spit roast them over the fire till they were crackly. And then we'd piece out, he'd get 2 legs, I'd get 2 legs, and then we'd eat that. But he loved the heads, with the brain in it and everything, because he's like, I'm craving the whatever's in the head that's making me want that. He goes, if you don't want to eat them, I'll eat them. I'm like, not a problem. You can have the heads. They're all yours.
Not a problem.
All yours. Here you go.
Oh my gosh.
So Wes would eat the lizard heads, and we'd eat a couple legs each, and it was this very, very minimal meat, just not sustaining. You're hungry, your body's going through ketosis. You can feel it happening. You know everything that's happening. You're more in tune with your body out there when that's going. You need protein. You're not thinking about going out and getting a salad at that point. You want protein. That's what your body is craving.
Can I pause you right there and ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you ever been a vegetarian in your life?
Hell no.
Okay.
What's wrong with you?
How do you think a vegetarian or a vegan would do in that circumstance?
They have had a vegetarian on the show before, and she did okay. I mean, she did her 21, but I don't know that she came out healthy. I don't know.
Okay.
She did it. She did the 21. I don't think any vegetarians ever done the 40.
Could they have done the 40 where you were in South Africa? Since you said there's no vegetation.
I don't think there was none.
So the only calories you're going to get had a heartbeat at some point.
Would have had to have been meat.
Okay.
Yes, period.
Okay. This is the most extreme carnivore I've ever heard. And I think it was so compelling, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted you all to hear her story, is that there's a lot of influencers out here that talk about going to visit the certain tribes around the world. And I've never personally met somebody who did what Gwen did, which is literally have to go out and survive with nothing except the skills that you have, a couple of basic tools, but no food provided whatsoever, not even electrolytes, no nourishment, no nothing provided for you.
Nope.
And if you medically tapped out, you were gone off the show. There's a prize awarded if you survive through the 40 days?
No.
There's no prize. So it's not like the Amazing Race.
They pay you per day that you're out there, but you don't get a prize money.
You're not in competition other than compete against yourself.
You are basically testing your mettle.
Okay. And we already know now you're made of rock hard iron. You're stainless steel.
I don't know about that, but
So one of the interesting parts of our conversation went to, after this was done, you guys fly back to South Africa. When you finally leave the bush.
Sure. We walked out. It was
walked out.
Yep. We walked out, had our extraction walkout. Then they put us on a helicopter.
Okay.
And flew us around to go see the area that we'd actually survived in for 40 days. And then they dropped us back at the baobab tree.
Same place.
Same place that we'd extracted
Like, this
to.
helicopter goes to the airport. What are you doing?
I'm like, what? We're like, what? No, time out. And they're like, yeah, we can't get you guys dropped off at the place that we have you staying, so you got to hop on these vans. And so we got in the vans, and they drove us out to the retreat that we were staying at there for the end, the last couple days that you're there, as you're out crossing it out of Africa.
Okay.
And,
out of Africa.
Out of Africa. Yep. And
we're old enough to know what that is.
Right. And
53.
Exactly. Good age, right?
Good age. Best age ever so far.
You learn enough to not be stupid.
Correct. Correct. So what I'm curious about is the moment that you ate some of the food that production provided for you guys. Did they think they were doing you guys a favor by providing you with this great food?
I think so. So that was the crazy thing, right? So it was day 39, and production came in and they said, hey, you guys have rocked it. You guys got the extraction hike tomorrow, and after that, we're going to put on this big feast for you. So we want you to tell each of us, just come over, each of you tell us what it is that you are craving the most, and we will try our best to have it there for you once you get out, once you finish the 40-day. So each of us gave them our bucket list of things that we wanted.
Can I ask what yours was?
So mine was fresh fruit and eggs. That's what I wanted. That's what I felt like I needed.
Okay.
Some of the other guys that were around, because we'd hear what everybody was wanting, and everybody's drooling at that point, because you're like, oh, that does sound good, dang.
Chick-fil-A sandwich?
No, definitely not that. Plus, it's Africa. We're out in bush Africa, so they were pretty limited on that stuff. But one of them was like, he wanted like chips and candy bars and a bunch of processed junk, garbage stuff. And I was like, that does not sound good. Another guy was like, he wanted pizza, and somebody else had said they wanted, what was the other things we had out there? Salad stuff.
Burgers.
Nobody asked for burgers. No, nobody asked for burgers.
Wow.
A couple of us actually asked for, we wanted some steaks, like actual.
Not horse meat. Not a giraffe.
We wanted like steak cooked on an actual barbecue instead of like over a fire, right?
A man-made
right, an
smoker.
actual like steak, right? So they did, and they provided most of that stuff, and they basically had this, feast of a table that was laid out, and it had anything that you could possibly want on that table. Well, the funny thing was, so one of the younger cast that was on there, Sarah, I think she was mid-20s. She was like, I'm just gonna gorge myself, and we're all like, you probably shouldn't do that. She's like, no, I'll be fine. So she goes in and she's like shoveling food, eating plate after plate after plate of food. She's not a very big girl, so she's eating all this stuff, and then they take you off the table there and take you over to do your exit interviews. And she'd gorged herself so much that she would be like starting to talk, and she'd be like, she'd puke. She'd go back, she'd start talking, she'd puke, because her body was not able to process that at all. I mean, we'd just gone 40 days with none of that stuff, and now all of a sudden, quick influx into your body of all of this stuff that you, other than meat, that you had not had, and your body was rejecting it. It made you feel, it was so bad, it made you feel like crap. You were just like lethargic. We had the experience, like I had told you, of going primal about 30 days in.
This is very interesting, and before you go into that, I just want to set the stage for this. She's about to tell you what we feel when we do fasting. So if you've done an extended fast, and by extended I'm talking about 3 days, 4 days, 5 days or more, as you get into heavy ketosis, you're running on ketones. And when you're running on ketones, you feel like Superman or Superwoman. You have almost, it's like you're outside of your own body, watching your body, and you have super strength, you have super creativity, your mind is on fire. And I have learned that there is the next stage of that. Gwen has referred to this as being primal. because now she's in primal instinct. So now I'm going to turn it back to you. I just wanted to set the stage for what this is to describe.
So, as I said earlier, we all went through that ketosis, and we knew what we were going through. We're all very body aware of what was going on with that lack of everything coming in. You know, we were in starvation mode. Body's starting to consume its fats.
Yeah.
So, knowing that, we thought, no problem, we got this. You know, everything's going. Well, we're all there. It was around day 30, and we could actually. So every night, production and the camera crews leave. You're out there by yourself. The next morning, they come back in with all their camera gear and everything and get the day started and whatnot for filming. We could smell them coming over the ridge. Things were becoming clear. You became primal. You could sense shifts in the weather. You could smell things in the air. You could smell what kind of body wash they used, or if they had bacon or coffee for breakfast. You could smell it before you even saw them. You were so in tune with everything that was around you. Everything was crisp. You could hear things better. Your hearing increased. Your sight increased. Everything was clear. And I'll have to show you the picture when we're done with this, but my eyes are green, sometimes blue. They shift different colors depending on what I'm wearing, but predominantly green. When I came out of that 40 days, every one of the survivalists that was there, whatever color their eyes were bright. Like I'd never seen my eyes that bright before.
Did that scare you?
No, I thought it was cool as shit.
That's such a great answer. That's so cool.
Because what I realized was that I'd gotten all those toxins out of my body. Like in that 40 days, I had removed anything. And I eat fairly healthy up in Alaska because we don't have a store where we live.
You don't have Velveeta cheese. You don't have Doritos.
We can't run to the grocery store. It's a 6-hour drive if in the summertime when the roads are open. Otherwise, you're flying out to Fairbanks to go grab a grocery run to come in. So we don't. It's too expensive.
Pizza's not delivered.
No, that's not an option where we live. So on the scale of normal American consumption, we eat fairly healthy because we live off the land.
Okay.
When we go into town, of course, I'm going to go grab a bag of Cheetos on occasion because they're good.
Yeah.
And you start eating them, and they're like, why the f*** did I do that? I don't feel good now, right?
Right.
But it's just part of the American culture. Chips, burgers, whatever, fast food. We learned about a year after we went off-grid, when we come into town, we don't eat out anymore because it makes you feel sick. You just don't feel well. So with that, going to Africa, that 40 days, I realized even with the foods that we were eating, because of course we have, I have rice and potatoes and sugar. I bake bread. I do that. That's what we survive the winter through on that kind of stuff. I make all of that. But all of those things have chemicals in them. They're all processed to some point, that kind of thing. All of that stuff that I had been eating was removed from my body, and now I am completely toxin free 40 days in. There had been nothing introduced into my body for that 40 days, and so you're like a very well-oiled machine. You can hear, see, you can taste, everything's just more vibrant and more alive. True primal. It literally, you shift from being a civilized human to being a primal human. And it is definitely a shift. And if you cannot explain it to people, I've tried and tried to explain it to people, and it's just, they don't quite understand, because it's like you've put yourself into a high alert 24/7. You are on point. Like you are there.
How did that affect your sleep? Did you need as much sleep?
We didn't sleep much because we were surrounded by Big Five. So we had lions, hyenas, we had elephant herds were on the move coming through because there was hunters up in Botswana that were trying to kill the herds, and so they were forcing them down into where we were at on the border. So they were crossing the border, the river where we were at, crossing that river, and they were coming right through our camp.
Oh, wow.
So we had like angry bull elephants that were very aggressive.
And your boma could keep them out?
They're prickly, but they could have walked right through it. Luckily they didn't. We were super not lucky that they didn't. But we had just there were some really bad predators that were out there, and so you were always on alert.
Kill or be killed.
I'd lay there, I'll sit there and watch TV now, and I'll watch a survival show or something, and I'll hear the hyenas in the background doing their little yips, and whoop, 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 that kind of thing. Takes me right back to that boma, because every night the hyenas were outside of our boma, circling out.
Just waiting.
Waiting. They knew we were in there. They knew we were in there, and they're just
Did
like...
anybody ever get
attacked?
Captured, attacked?
No, I had an eland charge me.
A what?
An eland. It's the largest antelope on the planet.
Okay.
It's huge. It's bigger than a horse. They're massive. And there was a herd of eland that had come in, and I was just 10 yards from the boma. I was heading over to grab water out of the water hole, and this calf came up between me and the water hole, and I knew that was bad because baby's there. Here comes mom, and she literally ran right at me, and I'm naked. I don't have anything with me. I have a freaking cast iron pot. That's it. I'm in trouble.
Can't get away.
Right? I was just like, I just stood my ground, and I just held my arm out, and I'm like, what else can you do at that point? She charged me. She slid on her hooves like this, and she stopped maybe 2 feet in front of me, and like huffed, snorted right in my face, and then took off with her baby. I was like, holy crap, that was close. Because I know how moose react up in Alaska, and I equated it to that. People get stomped by moose all the time up there.
Really?
Oh yeah, it happens a lot. And they're super dangerous. And so I was just thinking, I'm going to get attacked by a friggin' eland in
Oh my gosh.
Africa. Luckily,
this is so fascinating to me. This is why I wanted to interview you, because I want everybody else. True story, I've never seen Naked and Afraid. I've only seen teasers for it. But then when I went off television, I didn't use television at all. There was no way for me to really watch it. Now, of course, I'm interested because I want to go back and watch and see what happens. But, I also know what's like in the magic of TV and behind the scenes. But from what you're saying, there's no magic behind this. They weren't sneaky and Snickers bars to you guys because you were
not at all.
or anything like that.
No.
If you weren't doing well, they took you off because they didn't want you to die.
They would med tap you. Yep, they'd pull you out.
Which I think is just purely incredible. That you survived not only 21 days, but then made it 40 more. Yeah. And then you had a third episode. We won't go much into that, but you were medically tapped out on the third episode.
I got med tapped on Last One Standing. I was 4 days in on that one, and it was a parasitic infection that just ate up my lungs and my heart, caused my blood pressure to spike, and they were like, nope, you're out.
And your life's not worth it for something
Definitely
like that.
not. I agreed with them. I'm like, pull me out. I'm good. Like, sure. I am okay with that decision because I had not felt that sick ever.
Your husband, Nate, had a great conversation with him as well. And Nate's telling us about you warned him when you were getting off the airplane in L.A. Was it L.A.?
No.
Or was that in South Africa?
So after my 40 day out of South Africa, over the 40 days, I'd lost 34 pounds.
Wow.
And average on Naked and Afraid for any survivalist that goes out there, whether they eat or not, is a pound a day.
Yeah.
On average.
Okay.
So
you're right there trucking along.
Right there, trucking along. Okay. I mean, we ate enough. We were good.
Sure.
I think I told you we'd eaten so much of the Impala and the other diker and all that stuff that we had. We were eating meat. We were coming up with these really interesting recipes. One of the guys that was in our camp is a professional chef. Okay. And so he was making like roux and stuff like that. We'd pull the bone marrow out of the Impala, and he would make it into like gravy almost. And we put it over, and they gave us cast iron pots. And those were a bitch to carry around, but these big Dutch ovens basically. Yeah. So we put the Impala meat in there, and then we'd cover it up with water, put the lid on it, and we'd let it slow cook over the fire all day, and then he'd make the gravies and put it over the top. And so we were like experimenting with different ways that we could process, because that's all we had to eat was just meat. So we tried to figure out, how do we make this taste better so we want to keep eating the same meat that we're having all the time, because you got tired of it and you're like, I don't want any more meat. I'm good. But we got to that point where our bodies would tell us when we needed to eat and when we didn't.
That's another fascinating thing that we need to talk about.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
One of the very unique things about realizing that when you just eat meat, when you're a carnivore, strict carnivore, when you eat animal fats and proteins, you reach what we call satiety. You reach satiety very quickly, and it might take a pound of ground beef, and it might take 4 or 5, 6 eggs. Sometimes I can't eat meat that much because I just don't want it.
Right.
And my body talks to me. So you reach satiety in the South African wilderness eating Diker.
Impala and Diker,
and eating Impala. And you get to a point where you're like, I'm not even hungry.
Yep.
But yet you're in the wilderness with nothing.
Right.
And you don't want food because your body says, I don't need it.
Correct.
How far into the 40 days on that particular journey, not going to the 21, but into the 40 days, and you went how many days before you decided it was time to start eating? Was it 10, you said?
It was about, well, we had little things, like,
Okay.
you know, we'd had, lizards or little tiny bits of protein here and there. Snacks, yeah. Lizard snacks, lizard brains, whatever.
Right. Oh my gosh. So you would eat that, but that wasn't, you didn't eat
But our
meats.
first big meal was like, I think it was day 10 that we
Okay.
got in there. That was the Diker that he.
And how quickly did you reach satiety? How much food would you say you ate, like in ounces or pounds, if you think you could possibly figure that out based on your memory?
We probably ate a couple pounds each of meat that first night.
That first night. How did that make you feel?
Really good.
Okay.
I mean, we were satiated finally. We didn't feel hungry anymore. And then your body kind of like balanced out. It was like, okay, this is what we're doing. Okay, I got you now.
Okay.
We're good, right? And so then you would start looking for protein sources because
Sure.
there wasn't any out there. That was all you had was protein.
There's no foraging.
There's
at
no
all because
foraging.
It's dry season.
It's dry. There's no berries to pick. No grasses to eat. There's none of that. It's dry. Like there's
And
nothing.
there's no tribes around you, correct?
No.
There's a reason why there's no tribes around you, because there's nothing to eat.
It was called Valley of the Banished because where they were at was such a harsh environment for the tribes that had lived over there over the millennia that if people were not pulling their weight, they would banish them from the tribe because the food was so scarce in that area.
Couldn't afford to give it up.
Could
to
not
somebody.
afford to give it to somebody that was not pulling their weight in camp. And so that was what that season of our challenge was. Figure out how to survive in this very poor area for scrounging food. And if some of your tribe's people don't pull the weight, you can banish them.
Wow.
So that was our experience with our 40 day.
Okay.
Most are not like that.
Okay.
That was a one season thing that they did.
So now we're going to flip it back to when you landed and you explained to Nate, I know you've seen pictures, but you're not going to be ready to see me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be different than what you even see in pictures.
Yeah.
And did that hold true?
It did, because
Okay.
that brightness in my eyes, it was very striking. It caught your attention. My frame had changed, like my body frame had changed. I was leaner. Africa, I didn't get eaten up by bugs like I did in Mexico. Mexico, I was covered in bug bites from head to toe.
Okay.
Africa, I was not. It was not as bad. I had a couple bug bites, not bad. But my body fat had gone away, basically. My body had eaten most of that body fat off, and now it was just muscle.
Did you happen to go to a doctor to find out what your body mass index was, to find out what your body leanness was?
I didn't go to the doctor for that. They require that you go to the doctor after you get off any challenge.
Okay.
So on the 40 day, I went to the doctor like 2 days after I got back, and I went in to her and said, hey, I don't feel like I need to be at the doctor because I feel really good, but this is what they want us to do, so here I am. And she's like, well, what's going on? And so I said, well, I was on this TV show. I went out to South Africa and I survived naked for 40 days out in the bush and lost like 34 pounds over the last 40 days. And she's like, time out, what?
What kind of diet is this?
She goes, hang on. She goes, you do realize you're not 20 anymore, right? I'm like, excuse me? Yeah.
And to be fair, you were 39?
No.
No, 49.
I was
You were 49.
49
Okay.
when I did that one.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
49 on my 40 day. Yeah. So
Now, when you did this, and now you and Nate are free to choose wherever you want to eat because you're in a city at this point. You're not up in Alaska. You're in a city where you can go to just about any fast food restaurant that exists, just about any major chain restaurant, right? What did you guys choose to eat when you had the world as your oyster at that point?
So night one, when I first got back, we stayed at Pike's, which is just like a fancy hotel that's there. And they have a
South
restaurant.
Africa,
No, this
Alaska?
is in Alaska,
Okay.
in Fairbanks.
Okay.
So he'd gotten a hotel room for like 3 nights so that I could stabilize myself basically before we pop back out into the bush, because it's a very extreme climate out there.
Okay.
So we're in Fairbanks, which is a city, and he's like, what do you want to eat? And I said, let's just go to Pike's restaurant, which is right there on site. We went in there and I ordered lobster bisque, and he got like nachos or something like that. And I looked at his nacho plate and it almost made me throw up. I was like, there's no way I'm not touching that. Now granted, you'd think after 40 days of not eating anything substantial other than meat in Africa that you would want to consume a whole plate of nachos. It was the last thing I wanted to do.
Really?
And then I took a bite of that lobster bisque and it was so salty. Like, I hadn't had spices, I hadn't had salt, I hadn't had anything like that in my diet for 40 days. So I take a bite of that lobster bisque and I'm like, I cannot eat this. I couldn't. It was literally like burning my tongue. There was that much, to me, it tasted like that much salt.
Oh my goodness.
But it was one of their top selling soups that they sold. Like, everybody raved over it. That's why I got it.
Not so much.
Yeah, not so much.
Did
So,
you eat anything that night?
No, not really.
So you just felt better not eating?
I felt better not eating.
I have to say, as somebody who fasts as frequently as I do, sometimes I feel better not eating.
Yeah, and I can see why, because I was just like, I need to listen to my body here. So then day 2, we're out driving around doing our grocery run, supply run, that kind of stuff that we're going to pop on the bush plane to fly back in a couple days. So we're getting all of our supplies set up to take out with us for the next 8 months.
Okay.
Because we have to supply run for 8 months when we go.
What a grocery store run.
Right?
Holy cow.
So we do that. We're going around town. I said, you know what? I feel like I need a McDonald's cheeseburger. And he's like, what? And I was like, I know. I hate McDonald's. I hate it. I have not eaten at McDonald's for decades because I just don't like it.
Okay.
But something in my body was like, you need a McDonald's cheeseburger. Just plain cheeseburger, regular cheeseburger. He's like, okay. So we pulled into McDonald's. I got a cheeseburger. I ate it. It satisfied the craving, but I felt sick after I ate it. I was like, I probably shouldn't have done that. But something in that, whatever it was, whether it was the salts or whether it was the
sugar, or
I don't know what it was. I have no idea. One and done. I haven't eaten McDonald's since. Because I don't. I just
Right.
I don't like fast food restaurants.
Well, and processed food in general is
Yeah.
something you just don't even
not used to. Yes, in general anyway. So yeah, it was just one of those learning experience. Like, listen to your body, but don't listen to it when it tells you you need processed foods, because that's not what you're after. There's something else that you're missing.
Nourishment.
Some sort of nourishment that you're missing. You need to figure out what that is if you want to stay in that ketosis state, to be able to recognize your body saying, I need this, and recognize that and address it, but not go off diet so far that you go eat a McDonald's cheeseburger. Bad idea.
So then what you're saying is that the best diet in the world is just to get naked, be a little bit afraid, and go into the bush
Go survive for 40 days.
40 days and 40 nights. This is actually pretty incredible, because one of the things we talk about is it's called an elimination diet, and you've done the ultimate elimination diet. You don't have a choice.
Right.
Unless
You
just
have
want
no
to tap
choice
out,
unless
you
you
don't.
want to tap.
That takes resolve.
It does. It's a mental game out there.
I talk
honestly.
all the time when I'm talking to people in my traveling. I talk about how it's so easy to just stop at almost any street corner and pick what you want. We have our own money. We don't have parents telling us we can't buy something. We go get it, and the next thing you know, we're huge.
Right.
And we're sick, and we don't understand why. We're clothed, and we're not even afraid, but we don't understand what we're doing.
Fat, dumb, and happy.
Fat, dumb, and happy.
That's about what it is. That's the American way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So then if you learn how to just abstain as long as you possibly can until you figure out what you can start reintroducing into your diet, to find out what's hurting you or not.
Correct.
This is something that my wife has done. She has done this. It's a total elimination, and by doing a total elimination, she started introducing things a little bit at a time, and she found out what did or didn't work. You knew right away things that did or didn't work on set on day 40.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
It was an absolutely incredible experience.
So do you have any advice for the people who are watching this when it comes to nutrition, nourishment, survival?
It's literally listening to your body and everything, like not even food related. Listen to your body. You have a sixth sense about you. Everybody does. You have that primal instinct in you. It's been suppressed so much because of the environments that we live in now, and everything's at your fingertips. And down here you can pretty much go and do whatever you want, whenever you want, and get whatever you want at any time. It's not like being out where you don't have access to those things. And so that to me is where the mental stamina to be able to say, no, I don't need to go get that McDonald's cheeseburger because I can. I would rather go get, a pound of jerky from the store, whatever, whatever it is, you figure it out. Whatever your body needs, you address that. And it's a mental game. It really is, in all things.
In everything.
In everything. That's what it comes down to.
I'm so glad you said that. Well, Gwen, thank you for your time. There's going to be a lot of questions that people ask, and I am highly encouraging you to please ask the questions in the chat. Go down below and just ask whatever questions you have. I'm sure Gwen would be willing to answer those questions.
Absolutely,
that people ask.
yeah.
And I don't think there's any question that she probably hasn't already heard. I'm sure there's a lot of things we could talk about that people are sitting and watching it going, but what about what she had? No, we're not going to talk about that. I'm amazed, and I did not expect this. These are the best.
Well, I'm happy to surprise.
It's so cool. And something else that's really neat is that Gwen has really strong survival skills, and that's something we're going to be talking about in our group of people tonight, is survival skills. And it's important to understand that the foods that you've got access to readily every day is not something that you may have access to when you need it. And I don't know when you're going to need it. I don't know that we'll ever have to worry about a cyber attack or...
Put it this way. If you're going to stock up and you decide that you're going to become the barter king when the world collapses, stock up on Twinkies and Ding Dongs so that those are easy to barter away, because you're never going to touch them, right? You're not going to eat those.
Right.
Everybody else, that's exactly what they want. As soon as they eat that, they go into slow mode. You're cracking, right?
That's good. So keep the enemy weak, is what she's saying.
Keep them weak. Feed them that crap.
Wow.
There you go.
Say, hey, I want your jerky. Give me your dog.
Trade.
No, I'm kidding. I have a dog. I love dogs. I'm kidding. No animals were hurt in the filming of this interview. But I just think it's compelling to know that as a survivalist, you already understood the game, but you still learned.
I learned so much out there.
What do you think is the greatest lesson you learned from all of this?
I seriously, the biggest lesson that I learned was everything is mental. It really is. It doesn't, no matter what state your body's in, it can be broken, it can be in great shape, whatever. Anything's going to take you to your knees. It has the potential to do that. The trick is to make sure that up here you're mentally strong enough to work through whatever is taking you out. Like, you need to be able to figure out how to push forward. So on every insertion that I've ever gone into, everybody always asks me, did you ever think about tapping when you were out there? My answer is no, because I had to get into a mental set before your feet even touch the ground that when I leave, I'm going to be walking out on the other side. And if you think anything else, you're done. That's it. Game over. You will tap.
Wow.
Period. You're done. It's all up here.
It's the resolve to finish.
It is the resolve to finish. That is what I learned.
Good for you.
Push through to the end.
I can't wait to come up to Alaska and visit.
I can't wait for you to come up. It's going to be fun showing you around.
Well, Gwen, thank you so much. And folks, ask questions. And if you want me to do another interview, we'll do a telephone interview the next time she's within telephone range, because she's not always down here in the North Georgia mountains. And this has just been a pleasure. Thank you, Gwen.
Been awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for all your service,
Thanks.
especially for getting injured in a lot of that. So
thanks for yours too.
Happy to have done it. Take care, folks. Have a great week.